Good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to welcome everybody to The Mandate, where you get a male's perspective on relationships. And today's topic is finding Boaz and not another bozo. And I'm Jason Linton, and today joining me at the Relationship Roundtable, I have the author of I'm Not Your Therapist, I'm Just a Man, Mr. Willis Hickerson, Jr. How you doing, Willis?
Hello.
And the second guest at the Relationship Roundtable is the author of Dance, The Anatomy of a Successful Relationship, Mr. Keith Murphy. What's going on, Keith?
What's up, fellas? How y'all?
Right.
All right. Well, I want to thank y'all for your time, and as we're going to go ahead and just dive right into the questions. And the first question is going to be directed to Mr. Keith Murphy, and it's basically referring to are women deceiving themselves. So let me ask you this question. Do women even really know what they want versus what they need in a relationship?
Well, you know me, Jason. I'm going to answer with the first thing that comes to my mind, whether it's right or wrong. I think what it is that women think they know what they need based on media, society, or other social pressures, parents, etc. And they tend to ignore their needs because those needs may compromise what their wants and desires are. Now, pausing for effect so that can sink in for you guys. They don't necessarily. I just don't believe that no one does not know what they need. They just choose to ignore them or put them on the back burner, so to speak, if they can get those desires and wants satisfied.
Okay.
And that indeed causes part of the problem. My position is if you find someone, Boaz or otherwise, that fulfills your needs, eventually those needs will spill over into the want category, and your wants will be fulfilled. More than likely, if your needs are fulfilled considerably, some of those wants are going to dissipate and disappear anyway, because you'll find that they're no longer as important as your needs being met. I hope that makes sense to somebody.
Makes perfect sense. And just to kind of summarize, women tend to know what they need, but they're chasing what they want because they feel what they need may not be enough for them. And they're kind of basing it off of what they see in TV, hear on music, or see in other relationships or see from their parents.
Right, society, media, or just their parents, But today's marriages and relationships can't be like our parents' relationships and marriages were, because we're two different people, two different generations, or three different generations, third generation. But they're not going to be the same as they were back then, and not going to be influenced the way they were back in the day. They're being influenced by the media and society. Unfortunately, they should be influenced by the will of God and what the Bible states as far as relationships and marriage is concerned. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
I got a question to piggyback on that, but I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna give Willis a question here right now. You ready, Will?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. What about the woman that says she doesn't really want a man right now in her life, as if she kind of controls the seasons of when she should be ready? Shouldn't she always be looking for a man? Or be prepared to receive a man?
I think she should always be looking for wholeness. I do believe, and I believe also, Jason, that there's biblical precedences here as well. I mean, there have been and will be single people in the world as well. What a woman, in my view, should be looking for is being whole. And for most, that will be inside of a relationship, though for some, the Lord may be using them in a way that their singleness becomes a blessing to the world. So I don't think that it's so much about a woman saying whether she doesn't need a man right now. I think she needs to be looking for being complete. Now, there are a lot of women who will say, you know what, I've tried this relationship and that relationship, and these things didn't work. And I really think this speaks to the question that you asked Keith and to his answer as well. They say, I tried this, I tried that, and I tried the other thing. But what actually ultimately ends up happening is because they got hurt in other situations, they will say, you know what, well, I just don't need a man right now. That's not what I need. I'll know when I'm ready for a man. And I think that that's ultimately a mistake. You cannot base what you will get on what you have had.
Right.
This is one case where while you do use your previous experiences to not only make you strong but to make you cautious at the same time, and this is going to be thematic for me throughout our conversation, I think. I woke up with this the other day. One of the biggest mistakes that a human being can make is expecting other human beings not to make mistakes. You get into a relationship, the guy, messed up or whatever, he wasn't any good. I mean, there's greedy guys out there, they're just trying to get every woman they can and get all of the sex that they can and put notches on their belt, but that's not every guy. But men have certain things that they are alike. So then she gets into another relationship, she's triggered by something she sees in this guy that the other guy did. And it just looked a little bit similar. It triggered something in her. Now she goes into a relationship destruction course. And I mean, men do this too as well. But, you go into a relationship destruction mode, and then after you do that 2 or 3 times, you say, well, you know what? I don't need a relationship right now. I'll know when I need the relationship. And the mistake is that when you do that, you hop in the vehicle of life by yourself and drive right past the person that God has for you. Because you've made a decision of when, because you decided when you were going to, you know what I mean?
Right. I had to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just reminds me of a discussion I had on my Facebook page about that. How we just tend to, as soon as something triggers a bad memory, before you know it, we want to jump out of the boat into the water, and then you realize you can't swim. You should have stayed in the boat because it looked like it was going to be a storm. You understand?
Yeah.
They need to. Sometimes we forget that our closest point to being successful is when it looks the worst.
That's right.
Yep.
As soon as it starts looking bad, it's, that's what Joe did, that's what Jim did, that's what Jack did. But this guy's name don't even start with a J. This is Herman.
A lot of times it activates a panic button, and they start replaying everything that went wrong, and their first thing is, let me get out of this before it gets worse. The one thing I tend to ask women is, if you have such a strong relationship with God, why do you feel God cannot work on the man that you are with at the present time?
Ooh. And that is a very good question, but the question assumes that we have yielded the work to God.
Exactly.
And we may not have yielded it. We may be saying that we're yielding it to God, but we find ourselves running around doing this little thing, that little thing, and the other little thing, trying to guide the thing ourselves.
Right. And sometimes we do it with we want what I call avoidance of hurt by avoiding the relationship. Because you're anticipating the same thing, the same pain or disappointment. So you avoid it by avoiding the relationship. And then again, that's not a good thing.
And the one thing I tend to express to females too is, you could tell me anything and you could fool everybody on this planet, but God really knows what's going on in your heart. He knows that there's still some anger, some you still haven't forgiven your ex, or you still hoping your ex comes back. I mean, God really knows, and until you get to that issue that you're holding on to or that's holding you back, it's going to be hard for you to move on. I posted something today. You can listen to as many motivational speakers, as many inspirational words you want to, but until you really look in the mirror and say, I got to let this go, or I got to give this up to God, you're going to be stuck in that same spot.
Right.
Well, yeah, I'll say this, Jason, and I know you'll want to move on, but here's the thing: the first step to any type of recovery is admitting that you have the problem.
Exactly.
Amen.
You've got to, because yes, I agree with you. God does know, but the question is, do you know?
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, you will not say, I have a problem with rejection, or I have a problem with trust, and I cannot give this person in my life right now the appropriate opportunity to either be a good man or not be a good man if I don't admit my problem with whatever it is. You know, so that's
right.
Yeah.
You know, and once you know that, then you can go to God, because the blind man didn't get healed till he went to the Lord and said, "Hey, I'm blind."
Yeah. I call that practice introspection until you receive revelation.
Yes, sir. I like it. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to get ahead and jump to this next question here. We're going to get ahead and slide over to Keith. And we're talking about women who are kind of hesitant to reach out and venture out into a new relationships. But are there just some women who just say, you know what? I mean, I think Will kind of touched it. They don't want to deal with the compromise and the sacrifices that come with the relationship. I mean, they're single, they're independent, they've been handling their business. To get in a relationship, a lot of things got to change, right?
That's right. That is true. And I'm not sure that they're really saying that they don't want to give up. What it is they're afraid to give up what they have or what they work for or their values. And indeed, if they didn't look at it as giving up something that they have or that they've earned or that they are, versus giving, period, without the word up, you're giving of yourself. You're sharing. It's more of an investment than a giving up.
Exactly.
And when they compromise, they think they're giving up. When they're sacrificing, they think they're giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And all they're doing is being selfless versus selfish. And it's not that even if they did that, if they became more selfless, it's not that they'd lose anything. They would learn about the other person if they would do that. As long as they hold everything to their chest, I'm not compromising, I'm not sacrificing, then they'll never know whether this other person would even want them anyway. Because now all you're looking at is what you have to compromise on or what you have to sacrifice for or about. And the person is not even knowing who and what you really are, because all you're doing is holding on to what you don't want to give up. I'm saying give, and you shall receive. Pretty simple.
There you go.
Man,
real.
That's a tough concept right there, isn't it?
Y'all silly.
All right. Well, let me get a question in your direction. Okay, we've talked about women and how they deal, they deal with relationships and taking that look in the mirror. And I saw this question earlier today, and the question was, would you marry yourself? And a lot of women quickly posted no. Shouldn't they be able to answer that question to a certain degree to where they could say, yes, I would marry myself? I mean, even guys, on the flip side of the table, but shouldn't you be able to say I would marry myself, or I know myself good, the good about me that I would marry myself?
Well, now that is.
Are you asking?
I'm asking Will.
That's an interesting question, and I would say, Jason, that I don't feel like I would marry myself because I don't feel like I have the other pieces that I would need to complete me. I feel like April has that. I feel like my wife has that.
Okay, and that's what I mean. Yeah. So, but knowing you, do you feel that you know the pieces you need, and let's say you have, your second half has the pieces that April has, she would complete you.
Right.
And that's how every relationship, it should start off like that. You get to know where they're strong at, you get to know where their weaknesses at, and then you sit there and say, okay, you know what, we can make this work.
Right. It is interesting. Now, if you were to ask me if I feel like when you look in the mirror, you be able to say that if I met somebody with my disposition, would I marry them? I think that's a good thing to look in the mirror and say, what about my disposition do I need to change? I'll try to say this real fast, and I said this in my book. The thing is, when I divorced my first wife and married April, I had to look and say, because I left her. I had to look and say, why was I so uncomfortable? Okay, well, I had a myriad of things that I could pull out to say what I felt like she did or didn't do. But the question is, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Because as I go into the relationship with my wife now, with April, I have to be able to look back and say, I know that I was not this, or I know I could have been a better that. I need to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, this time, if somebody were marrying me, they won't have to deal with that bear. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that from that standpoint, you got to be able to look in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm the kind of person that somebody could live with.
Exactly. Got you. And that's definitely what I was trying to ask right there. Now, let me ask you a question. Keith, you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You've shared this with me before, so I definitely want you to touch base on this. What are the characteristics of a good man that a woman should be looking for?
Integrity, character, credibility, things along that line, more intangible than tangible. They shouldn't be looking for what kind of job he has as long as he has a job.
Does he have to be 6'8"? Does he have to be 6'8"?
And they shouldn't be looking at how tall he is, just how tall he stands. If he stands tall, he is tall. And unfortunately, again, we get our choices occluded, or our vision occluded by what society mandates is what the man should be or shouldn't be. And tall, dark, and handsome is the first three things that comes out of everybody's mouth, females' mouth.
And what's funny about it is they run into these TV characters and find out they're only 5'2".
Right. And they're 5'2" in more ways than one is what I'm saying.
Right.
They stand 5'2" and they act 5'2".
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
They don't have. They have no credence about it. Nothing that you want to write home to mama about. They're just a good actor and they look good on screen. The same happens in real life. You see the guys, and women as well. They look good out there. And as soon as they open their mouth, I'm ready to go home. We understand why. I'm not trying to be funny or whatever, but I think you guys understand exactly what I'm saying.
Definitely.
And what ticks me off is I had a conversation again on my Facebook page about love at first sight. And, it's just, how can you love this person at first sight if you don't even know if he has character? You don't know if his, integrity is what people do when they're not looking at him. And if all he's doing is looking good while you're looking at him, then I have to question that. And you just fell in like with, he got a handsome face, 6'8", 220 pounds or whatever. I'm just saying, don't get me started.
Right.
and that's the perfect segue into this next question. No, Willis, we spoke in the past, and you had mentioned as when we get into relationships, aren't we all just like clay? I mean, the woman is pretty much going to mold us to be what she needs, right?
Well, you know what, Jason, I revisited that question as we were preparing to talk today, and we are clay. The question is, and this is like a really deep spiritual answer, and I hate deep spiritual answers, but I'm going to say it. The question is, who really is the potter?
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
like
because look, and again, I'm right back to, like I said, I'm going to be saying this because it hit me the other day, and I'm going to be saying this probably for the next month. So if y'all get tired of me saying it, I apologize for that. But if you think that you can either find or create perfection, then you're making a mistake. That's the mistake. The biggest mistake you're making is saying, and the only mistake bigger than thinking you'll find somebody perfect is thinking you can mold them into perfection.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about
insanity. We are not the potter. We are all on the wheel.
Exactly.
So sometimes the molding that is taking place in this clay is painful because we've gotten hardened because we've been left alone for a while. So now here comes God, the potter, and he's going to take one piece of clay, me, and another piece of clay, April. He's going to break us and then mold us together into a new creation. So, yeah, we all clay, but we got to stop. How can one piece of clay mold another piece of clay?
I like that, Will. That's really good.
I'm sorry, that was like crazy religious deep. I apologize, bro.
That was excellent.
And I mean, yeah,
I thought when Will said something about when we expect perfection, it made me think of this thought I had. When we expect perfection in others, you create flaws within yourself.
Yeah.
So how can you know, you can't be the molder, you're the moldee.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I went off GP.
and one thing that I hear from a lot of women is, you know, they get with a guy because they see so much potential in him. And I mean, we're kind of touching on that. It's like, okay, you see potential, but how do you, you know, not let his mistakes or his flaws eclipse his potential? I'm gonna throw that to you, Willis.
Okay, so now here you see this person with potential. Now I'm being careful to be as generic as far as male versus female as I can, but I'll be honest with you. I think, at least from a male perspective, it feels like women do this to men more than men do this to women. You see this person who has all of this potential, all right, and I'm going to just have to stick to the clay thing because it's working right now. But, you know, so now here you come, and you saw the potential of it, but you didn't realize that what will cause the potential product to become what it really needs to be is not you molding it, but you fitting your piece into it. Okay? So I'll give you a prime example. I am a huge leader. That's me. I'm a leader and I'm an artist. Those are my two defining pieces, okay? What that means is that I'm a horrible administrator and an even worse accountant, okay? I'm a musician, I'm a producer, I'm a writer, and I am a leader. Those are the things that I do. My wife, because of God's divine intervention, is an amazing administrator. Mm-hmm. So if she saw all this potential in me to be this great leader, musician, whatever, but then she saw that I was not a good administrator or a good accountant, if she spent her time being disgusted with those two flaws, and I'm just using, these are cursory, I mean, it goes real deep, you know, but if she spent her time being disgusted because I don't have those other two things, rather than taking her gifts to be able to do those two things and fitting in with me so that we're molded into one beautiful piece. You see what I mean? That's how how you grow the potential in the other person. You see the potential and then you stand there and you wait for the potential to come out and you don't add to it, well, then you're not going to get what you saw.
Oh, boy, this is funny.
Yeah, well, you hit that one out the park right there.
Yeah, really.
All right, we're gonna jump over to you, Keith. All right, we got a lot of guys in prison. We got a lot of guys who chose alternate lifestyles. We got a lot of men who haven't matured to be men. They're still stuck in the boy stage or the male stage. And then you calculate all the men that get killed in, young ages and everything. Are women really outnumbering the men?
Now, physically speaking, yes, but I don't think that the chances are any worse than they were 50 years ago. I think the chances are just as good as they have ever been. The competition may have increased. But if you've prepared yourself in your singleness, you most assuredly increase the odds in your favor. So the numbers may be imbalanced, but your potential for success, it all lies in you. I mean, if you're not producing a better you to get better odds, then those dudes in prison and gay men and immature and all that will affect your ability to be in a relationship or get married. But as long as you're preparing yourself and being molded in with the right clay and the right potter, you'll be just fine.
Jason, you did this with that clay, dude.
Say that again?
You did this with that clay. Now we're stuck on it.
But it's true. I mean, when you really think about it, when you start a relationship, everything you did in the past is pretty much almost, it's either going to be damaging to your current relationship,
right,
or is irrelevant. I mean, so you pretty much from day one, you need to reinvent yourself.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean to also speak to that question, if I can just interject this, I'm going to give sisters, particularly in the African American community, but women as a whole, I'm going to give them this much. Okay, I love to watch television, and my sorrow is that when I watch television now and I see the TV programming that is reality TV programming, more and more, particularly in shows that depict the African American community, the Black American community, I'm seeing a lot of situations where the men that are on the shows are not they're potential girlfriends. They're not potential boyfriends.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that the sisters aren't dealing with a quote-unquote shortage. I know we as men hate to hear them say there's a shortage of men, particularly those of us who are striving to be good husbands, good significant others, what have you. But at the same time, they're standing out there looking. They see, like Keith just said, and like you said, Jason, a young boy, a man who's actually a boy. So now he's a man who's actually a boy, which in my view is why his pants don't fit. Because he's got on man pants on a little boy behind, frankly. So now these women are looking, and they are in this place where they're like, I gotta, there's every good man I know is already taken. You know what I mean? This is where, man, don't go to Atlanta. I'm just warning you. Don't go to Atlanta. Because when you go to Atlanta, you're going to run in. You can get off the plane in Atlanta, and all you got to be is male, heterosexual, and breathing.
Right. I lived there for 3 years.
So you understand, you know exactly what I'm saying, Keith. And on one hand, I'm going to say yes, if a woman prepares herself, because God knows blessings favor the prepared mind.
Right.
But at the same time, I think this is where it behooves us as men to begin to sow into the youth coming up what a good man really looks like again. We got to get back to showing them, because there's not a good crop for our daughters.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're actually absolutely right. And the B part of that would be, we as men need to show these males the difference between being a male and a man.
Yeah.
And ideally, most of the youth don't know that. They don't understand that just because they have a little pee-pee between their legs, that's not what makes them a man. That just determines their gender.
Right.
But sometimes they want to question that.
Yeah.
And I will piggyback on that real quick, though, Keith. Remember we said women got so much power? If early on in the teenage years and the early 20s, if all women are looking for is money and the thing between their legs, and it works for him, he's going to keep working that.
He's going to keep working that. Which confirms our agreement that women have all the power. They have the influence for the male.
So we can sit here and say you need to have integrity, you need to have character, and all of that. But if he goes down the block and a beautiful young lady tells him, "Hey, I like your car. Let's go home," and they sleep, everything we just said just got thrown out the window.
Yeah, because what we're saying is more work. It's the path of more resistance.
Yeah.
And I grant you that, and that puts me right back to the raising of our children.
Exactly.
Because our daughters, we've got to work, and we're battling against the media. We're battling against, they can talk to Facebook faster. They can faster than they can talk to us, and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram, and we're fighting a lot. Yeah. We really are. But if we want our daughters to have an expectation, and we want our sons to have an integrity, it's on us. It's on us. I have said to my son, look, there's just certain things that Hickerson men don't do. Now, you are a Hickerson man, and I don't care what the rest of these fellas is doing, on TV and off. There's certain things that a Hickerson man doesn't do. And he's 19 now, and he can recount those principles back to me.
And that's how it should be. And the downside to that is we have so many men who their fathers aren't in their lives, so they don't have that voice over their everyday action. So, sometimes we may have to expand our territory and reach out to a guy who doesn't have a father or something to that nature, to where we are steering them in the right direction. Yep,
I agree.
And it's a tough battle, but either we're gonna do it or TV will continue to do it. So
right.
Now let me just clear this out the way. I know we're talking about finding good men and everything. Let's establish what a good man does not do. Because a lot of times, we're talking about potential and work. There's certain things like you just said. A Hickerson man or a Linton man, there's certain things that a good man does not do. And you want to throw one out there, Keith?
Well, one thing he won't do is lie or exaggerate the truth about himself to build himself up to be more than he is, to build himself up to be something that the woman might think, he might think the woman wants him to be. He just has to stop lying about himself or to himself. That'd be the first thing.
And I remember we spoke on it before. You had mentioned something to the nature of stop trying to impress the woman and rather than just impact the woman's life, right?
Yeah, right. Like that's in my dating process. Don't try to impress. It's easy to impress a woman with a credit card, but it's real difficult to impact her with simple things. Mm-hmm. Don't be taking her to dinner and spend $400. Anybody can do that if they got the credit line. But if you can take
what's something else that a good man just doesn't do?
Well, I agree with Keith, and everything I wanted to say kind of got encompassed in it. But also, one of the things that I explained to my son that a good man does not do is he does not take a woman's body for granted.
Amen. Amen.
I'm not saying that he doesn't appreciate it, he doesn't like it. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to be with a woman, but I'm saying he does not take her for granted.
That's interesting. I like that, and I see the challenge because I remember when I was growing up, when the women are just giving it to you, he has to have a level of understanding of how valuable he is also.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times our young men don't even understand how valuable what they have is. They just understand that she has a treasure. Let me get it. But he's been blessed also.
Right.
Well, he cheapens himself if he succumbs to that.
And here's the thing. The reason why I put it to him that way, and I started talking to him about that when he was 11. I remember the day and the conversation. But here's the thing. I'm not saying that my son won't be with a girl. He's 19. I'm not saying that he hasn't. And spiritually, of course, I would want him to be a virgin until he's married. But also, as a man and as a realist, I recognize that we've probably passed that point already. So, I'm not going to be ridiculous about it, but at the same time, and it's more difficult than ever for him to follow this, to honor this particular Hickerson man principle. But I want him to know that when he is with a woman sexually, it is not just a cursory event, and that person that he's with needs to be special to him, not some cursory thing that he just took for granted. And you're right, they are giving it up out there. I went to his college campus. I won't say what campus it was, but it was one of our historically black college and universities. I'll say that on a homecoming. And my Jesus, my wife was with me, and we both were, just like we couldn't even believe what we were seeing. How do you even walk across campus in those clothes? But at the same time, the difference between the Hickerson man that my son needs to be and a lot of the other little boys we saw running around is that even when they offer it, he won't take it for granted. And that's what I'm doing my best to let him know. That's one thing a man does not do.
Amen.
Gotcha. And one thing I would throw in there, a man does not physically hit a woman. I don't care how frustrated you get, whatever the case may be, you get away, you evacuate the premises, you call one of your boys to come get you if you don't have a car. But I see too many women I get inboxes from too many women who are dealing with a man who's hitting on them, and they think it's okay. And they defend them after the fact. I got a buddy of mine who said that his sister was being abused by a guy. He went over there, beat the guy down. She wound up staying with him and getting married, and he wound up having to apologize to dude for beating him up.
Wow.
Well, I wouldn't have apologized for beating him up because he never had any business putting his hands on the girl in the first place.
Wow.
That would be a lesson for you.
At the wedding, you be like, listen, my bad about what happened. I was just protecting my sister. But it's like, how do you put somebody in a situation like that?
Listen, man, I was just talking to my mom about a situation where a lady that we knew for a long period of time was abused until she passed away by her husband. And I just could not understand. For me, that's a psychosis. That's a thing. And women who get involved in that tornado can't get out of it.
Right.
They struggle very hard to get out of it. So I agree.
Not without help.
Yeah, not without help. I absolutely agree with you. And that is another one of the principles that I share with my son. We just don't hit. Well, we don't enjoy the hitting violence type thing anyway, male or female, but we do not hit a woman. That is a Hickerson thing.
Right, period. Yeah, I don't have sons. I have two daughters, but I've often told my grandsons who are in their 20s that the minute you feel like you want to hit a woman, just as soon as you feel like it, that's the time you're supposed to turn around and leave.
Of all the times that I wouldn't even agree with this song on any other occasion except now, but that would be a time to call Tyrone.
Call Tyrone. You just think you want to hit someone, and it's time for you to leave. Reevaluate yourself, reevaluate your relationship, reevaluate the girl, reevaluate everything. Once you hit them the first time, that's the hardest time.
Right.
Exactly.
After that, it gets easier and easier.
Right.
So, you don't even want to stop.
And I had this conversation with a guy who I know who kind of went down that road, and he wasn't built like that to be, an abuser, but she verbally abused him. So it eventually caused him to react one time, and then it just opened the whole door to, a whole other can of worms, or as you say, the tornado. But you have to catch that verbal abuse also. And a lot of times that does come from the female direction, but it does go both ways. But a lot of times, like you said, you have to reevaluate why you're in the relationship or what's taking place and read the signs way before it gets to that last stop.
Right.
Man,
a lot of us don't realize that when we have our disagreements and conflict, the woman's biggest weapon is her mouth. And the man's biggest weapon is his fist. And that's just not fair. That's not a fair fight. Shouldn't be fighting in the first place.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make it at least be manly about it, just go ahead on and let her have her mouth, but you can then be gone.
Yeah.
And she still has her mouth. You still in one piece. You just gone. Whether it's temporary or permanent. You know, I'm just saying you can't beat somebody into submission.
I was just about to agree with Keith. She's not going to stop me from walking out the door.
No.
Leave. That's one thing I can do. I can leave.
Right.
Yeah.
I can leave if I got to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be permanent. Just leave, you know.
Leave. Just get that breather.
Right. Get the breather.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to take a break from the relationship. Sometimes you need to break away from the relationship, period.
I mean, and sometimes you even need to have kind of like a mediator, somebody who's going to sit there and listen to what's going on and tell both parties about themselves. Because a lot of times you get so blinded and clouded with how you feel and your emotions and what they did to you over the past year that what's going on is so irrelevant. And it could be it's a simple fix, but you got so much built up anger and animosity, you can't even get past it.
Jason, how did we get on this? How did we get on this subject? We're supposed to be talking about.
This is Jason's fault.
But we're talking about good men, so we're establishing what good men don't do.
Yeah, I agree though. I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
So no hitting.
Don't do that.
No hitting, no taking advantage of the body. And what was the one that you shared, Keith? Keith.
Oh shoot, I forgot. Remember, I'm 65 years old. I'm retired.
All right. Well, we'll get back to that. It'll pop up. Now, you had mentioned this. Will, let me throw this question at you. A lot of women are looking for a good man, but they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They're sitting at home in front of a computer, going to they're doing the same thing, thinking, something new is going to come into the same old situation. So how realistic is it to think the man of your dreams is going to come knocking on your door with, packaged perfectly?
Yeah. Again, with the perfection thing again. Okay. So here's the thing. I recognize that in the King James Version of the Bible, it is said that a man that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. And I have heard many preachers, particularly female preachers, of which I have absolutely no problem with female preachers, as a matter of fact. But in this particular instance, I think this is a bit overused and a bit stretched in its interpretation. That means that he is supposed to find you. You are the jewel.
Right.
He is supposed to find you. Right. Okay, we might be going a little bit further than we might be, as one of my friends loves to say, we might be putting a 20 on a 10 on this one. Here's the thing. Here's the thing in my view. First of all, men are attracted by certain things, and everybody knows that many of them are visual. We know this. If you don't know, read my book. But at any rate, the thing is, men are attracted by certain things, certain characteristics in a woman. The care that a woman has to take is that, number one, if you wanna be someone that a man is going to be attracted to, it's not a matter of what your body type is or what your face or your skin color is. There's a certain attitude that you gotta have, a certain attitude that you don't have, that you shouldn't have, or else a man's not going to be attracted to you. And if he's not going to be attracted to you, then he's not going to come try to find you. Right? I mean, it's just common sense. If you're sitting at home in front of the computer, or you just going to work every day and, you know, paying your tithes, knowing that the Lord's going to send Boaz, hey, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I really do. One day I went to choir rehearsal, and the young lady who was directing the choir at the time, I was minister of music at the church, and the young lady who was choir director, whom I had not paid literally any attention the whole time I had been there. One day I went to church, and somebody else was directing my choir, and I got upset because as minister of music, nobody's supposed to be directing my choir, and I don't know it. I walked in, I was a little bit late. I walked in, I saw this young lady. She had a ponytail and on some jeans and carrying on, and I thought to myself, well, she is cute now, but why is she directing my choir? Got up there, and lo and behold, it was the young lady who always had directed my choir. She just had kind of spruced up in a different way than I was used to seeing her.
Okay. Yeah.
Her name's April.
Is that right? I wonder who that is.
That was 6 years ago. My point is,
go boy.
My point is this: she never, quote unquote, came on to me, but she became a lady that I was attracted to. So we became friends. When we went to lunch, you know, she kind of made sure she was a little spruced up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But she wasn't coming on to me. She was just being a lady. She waited at the door for me to open it. I mean, it was just, you know, what's going on? All of a sudden, because she allowed me to be a man before her, but she was in front of me. She wasn't sitting and waiting for me to dig her up out the ground. You know, I mean, you can't, and there's not going to be, because there's not going to be any perfect situation. So that's not coming. We're human. That's not coming. You know, so you got to know if you are a young lady and you want and you're looking towards relationship, you know, you're going to be the young lady that the type of man you want to attract would be attracted to. Then those type of men will find you. All right? So that depends. I mean, you know, that depends. If you don't want to find anybody at all, then sit at home and watch the TV and look at the computer and wish and hope and pray. You know, if you want to attract a thug, then you know how to dress. I mean, I'm just saying.
And all that.
So I don't know if I answered the question properly, but that's what I think.
You hit it out the park, man. All right, Key, let me throw a question at you. We already touched on the question, what are women basing a good man on? So we kind of talked about how media and every, you know, societies, you know, they paint that picture. So I'm going to throw a different question at you that I know that you are very familiar with. What about the woman who's saying she wants a new man in her life, but she's still kind of holding on to the ex or hoping the ex comes back?
You mean as in soul tie?
Yeah, exactly. How does a woman know it's time to let the ex go, or how does she kind of say, you know what, maybe this is, you know, what's the determining factor of staying or letting the ex go?
For wait a minute, you got me confused now. Because when you say what is the determining factor of the guy staying with the woman?
Yeah, so, you know, the woman, she's trying to move on, but she still kind of has a thing for the ex. And the ex is still in her ear. They're still friends. They still talk. And she's hoping he comes back into the picture.
No, that's a straight-out no-no. That's a straight-out no-no more ways than one. One, you don't want to be on the rebound because of that factor that there's a soul tie, and at any moment, any given moment, that woman could go back to that ex, which is now no longer an ex. I hope I'm addressing it like you mean it.
So let me just make sure. You're saying once that person becomes an ex, they're behind you. You focus moving forward.
Focus moving forward. If the guy is considering a relationship with a female that is still hanging on to the hopes of her ex coming back into her life, I don't think the guy should give her the time of day. It's a waste of time.
So
she's still mourning. She's still grieving. She's still hoping and praying for something that should be X. That's what X really stands for, isn't it?
Okay, so it kind of carries over to male or female. Once the person is behind you and they're actually moving on, you need to focus on moving forward in your relationship or in your pursuit of a relationship.
You need to focus. Well, first you should focus on moving forward and mending yourself. You need to be ready for the next relationship. Just because that one is ended or it's an ex or whatever, I don't recommend anybody going into a new relationship 3 minutes after they just ended one.
And that's going to be more difficult for some people than others, because it's not that easy to do. Particularly, like in my situation, my first marriage was 20 years. You know, 20 years, a son in heaven and a 19-year-old walking the earth. We got a lot between us, and we are very good friends now. But there was a 400-year period of silence, you know, because and I think God did that. I didn't do it on purpose, and neither did she. But I think God did that because if we were going to move on, because we had made this decision, you know, if we were going to move on, it would be very difficult for me to be all Aprils and partly Sharon's. It's just not possible.
And that's what I'm saying. I follow it, man.
I think one of the things that helped me out when moving from one relationship to another was when we leave a relationship and we kind of get over our feelings, we tend to only remember all the good times. You don't tend to remember the arguments and the days that, things weren't going right. You tend to remember all the good moments and the memories. So what I did was I focused strictly on the things that didn't go right. I focused on every time we had an argument and it didn't make sense or just things weren't right. And that helped me say, you know what, that is where I need to go again.
Right. Yeah,
and like you said, it is a tough. It's a tough place because you invest a lot of time. There's children involved. I mean, there's hopes and dreams and prayers that you probably shared together, and it's a lot. But you do have to kind of just draw that line because you can't be halfway in the last relationship and be fully into the new relationship. And as guys, we know that. We know if your heart is still with somebody else.
Oh, yeah. And depending upon the type of guy that you are now dating, he may or may not care. It may be to his advantage for you to still be stuck on the other dude because then you ain't paying him as much attention while he go do whatever he
Exactly. And he'd always use that as an escape hatch. Well, listen, I know you still got feelings for him and everything, and I don't want to be come between y'all.
Right.
And so he could manipulate that situation to his advantage, like you said.
Right. Well, because you haven't let go. You have not let go. You have no clarity of thought.
Exactly.
Right.
All right.
Wow.
So we're going to get ahead and jump into this last segment here. And this is where I'm going to ask you guys each to share one rule to dating. So each one of y'all going to have, share 3. I'm going to start off with you, Willis. What's one rule to dating for women?
The first rule of dating for women, I'm sorry, is don't expect perfection.
So what should they expect?
They should expect a human being, and on top of that, they should expect, based upon the type of person they modeled themselves to be when that person was looking at them before the date, to the point where that person would respect them in that same way, i.e., for instance, and this is just a little example, but i.e., as a lady, expecting him to respect you by getting the door, pulling the chair, and taking care of the check.
Gotcha. So if you don't expect that in the beginning, then you don't expect it later on, right?
It ain't coming later on. Nope.
It ain't coming later on.
And that boils down to back to what we said, having the power and presenting it in the beginning of what you expect or what should take place. Or what you exactly. Right. All right, we're going to jump over to you, Keith. What's a rule you like to share towards dating?
Well, the irony is Will stole one of mine, but I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit. And mine is, one of them is don't expect too much. In other words, you want to expect the guy to be a gentleman and pull the chairs and open the doors for you, but you don't want him to be bringing you 24 roses on the first date.
Right.
And that's a bit overdoing it. You're expecting too much. He doesn't even know you. That's just a minor example. But another thing is that I consider a good rule of dating is don't ask a bunch of serious questions on the first encounter. You need that person to be themselves. And if you ask a lot of questions that are tantamount to building marriage, so to speak, what's the person going to do but tell you what they think you want to hear? So just let them be them.
Mm-hmm.
Just, don't ask them, do you like kids or, whatever. Serious questions on the first date is just a no-no. You want to see how they react and how they respond just in general. Somewhere down the line you need to ask those questions, but not on the first date.
So you say don't apply too much pressure on the first date.
On the first date.
Okay.
Don't expect
all right,
too
Willis?
much. Yeah.
What's another rule you got?
My next rule would be sincere. I need to say that more clearly. Be sincere to the point where the person actually can believe your sincerity. Because, I'm not saying that people are not sincere, but a lot of times because on the first date we're playing these cagey games, you know what I mean? I'm scoping you, you scoping me, so forth and so on. The real person that is you does not come out. So be sincere. Be who you are, honestly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add to that, prior to that first date, there should be some conversations to where you do feel comfortable being sincere.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't, when if you go on a blind date or your first date and you haven't really spoken to that person, you're naturally going to kind of be on the defense and try to kind of feel the person out. So there should be some conversations that take place prior to the date to where when you see the person, laughing and joking should feel comfortable. I mean, you shouldn't be on your toes and kind of telling your girlfriend, hey, keep an eye on us, to go sit at the table across from us, or here's my number, I'm going to call you if something goes wrong, or something like it. It shouldn't be that much of a mission impossible when you go on your first date.
And I probably shouldn't tell people this, but, there is a smartphone app that'll call your phone at a certain time.
To make it seem like you got to go.
That sometimes. That's a good app to have. Sometimes they need to know that.
All right, Keith, what's another rule you want to share as far as dating?
Again, I like to focus on first dates. And let me just say, the reason why I like to do that is because if you start something out good or very well, it's usually going to end just as good as you started.
Mm-hmm.
So if you started poorly, it's probably going to end poorly. But anyway, one of the things that I suggest that you don't do is bring the halo of marriage and put it over the person's head. You're just now going out. Because right now it's not about marriage. It's about compatibility or just getting to know the person. Just learning process, because that's all dating is. I don't even like to use the word dating, but that's a whole other chapter for another book.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Keith. You're saying when a woman goes on a date, she should not bring the wedding magazine to pick out a dress yet.
You took notes. I didn't want to repeat myself. But right, that's one of the things you don't want to do. Don't bring a wedding magazine on a first date. I just changed it to a halo of marriage.
I got you. And I know a lot of women tend to feel like they don't want to waste time, so that's why they kind of ask maybe a probing question to kind of see where the man is at, because that first date, like you said, a lot of it's more of, as much as we want to say impact, it's really about impressing and kind of showing what you're about.
Yeah.
So a lot of women don't want to waste time. They don't want to go on a second date.
Let me interrupt this here. It's like a boxing match. You got 15 rounds to go. Nobody comes out and shoots their whole thing in the first round. They're feeling each other out, see what you got, see what you don't have, looking for weaknesses, looking for strength, and that's where the first date should be.
Man, you ever watch Mike Tyson?
You just feel the person out.
Mike Tyson came and tried to knock you. Mike Tyson tried to get it over in the first round.
Yeah, but
then he ended up having to bite the dude's ear. Come on, man.
Yeah, he had to bite the guy's ear off.
I got you. All right. Well, what's another rule for the women as far as dating?
Don't do too much. Don't do too much. Don't go overboard with trying to be funny. Don't go overboard with trying to be sexy. Just take it easy. I'm not saying don't do too little either, but I'm saying don't do too much. Sometimes you end up going out with a person and you're looking at them and it seems like they are trying so hard.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And that, for a man, translates into neediness. And we don't like that. So don't do too much.
It's funny you said that because we've probably all seen it in the movies where the girl says she has a date and all the friends go crazy and everybody's like, you got to wear this, it doesn't need it. You don't need all of that.
You don't need all of that for more than one reason. For more than one reason. The first reason, of course, is what we are just stating. But here's that other reason. Let's say the date goes well. It turns into another date. It turns into another date. It turns into an engagement. Now, ladies, if you're listening, hear me out. And I don't mean to steal any of Chris Rock's thunder, but if you wore heels the first time,
right.
Okay.
Right.
In other words, if you did all of that at the first date, okay, and you put on you put on all, and you need to put it on a little bit, but if you put on all your best stuff, and then once you get into a relationship, you want him to feel like you don't need all that. He doesn't need all of that anymore. Now you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
So
listen, I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I just thought of this other thing. If you get someone with a gimmick, you have to keep them with the gimmick.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
You're going to put the heels on the first one. You got to be the second and third, and when you get ready to go to bed after you're married,
yes, sir,
you got to be taking heels off. Take the heels off, man.
Because I'm just saying, because that's what there's nothing worse than a bait and switch. If you do too much, particularly during the dating season, and you're not being the person you are, or not building the person that you are.
If you are, right.
Okay? Then when you get into a full-blown relationship, the other person is going to be that's the same thing with us with the credit card. Okay, you got that one credit card that you can use, so you go out and you just, you throw that card on the table, but nobody knows that card is almost at the limit. Now you're in the relationship, and she's like, oh, you only got one credit card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be who you, don't do too much.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
All right. I'm going to throw a rule out there that women have to, we kind of touched on this, they have to kind of get out their comfort zone when it comes to looking for men. I know many women who, they stay in their same neighborhood, they stay in their same situation, looking for a good man when you've already seen everybody from A to Z in that territory. Go on a vacation. Go to the next city. You got to do some traveling. You never know what's waiting for you outside of your comfort zone. And, it's scary to sit there and think that you're going to end up with the best person that's left over from the crop of high school classmates.
Right.
You can't. I mean, that's not the way you should be living your life. Like, okay, yeah, I used to date him when I was in the 11th grade, and he seems like he got it together. That's like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
It's pitiful.
A bottom feeder.
And it's like you gotta really just kind of expand your thinking and say, you know what, I'm single. I'm free to kind of do whatever I want. Let me go on a trip. Let me travel. Let me get. You never know what's out there waiting. You may go somewhere and meet somebody from, the next county. You never know. have to expand your mindset and your vision and the possibilities. Because, I mean, I know guys in the neighborhood, they're like, yeah, you know what, she ain't going nowhere. She'll be right there in about 5 years doing the same old thing.
Right. Right, or they've already got a preconceived notion about you from some mistake you made 9,000 years ago.
Exactly. Yep, and you was with so and so, and now you know that you labeled to be Mrs. So and so for the rest of your life.
Right.
Jason.
You know, I mean, really.
Hey,
you got it.
You know.
Right.
Hey,
all right.
We kind of gone over our time, but I need to throw this one thing in for the rule.
All right,
rule and dating.
All right.
Listen intently and purposely. Listen intently and purposefully.
Wow.
On your first, second, third date, just listen. You don't have to ask all these crazy questions. If you listen with your eyes and your ears, you'll learn pretty much everything you need to learn.
Wow.
Listen how they talk to the waiter or waitress. Listen how they talk about their preacher. Listen how they talk about their mother. Listen about how they talk about the garbage man picking up the garbage.
Right.
Or the bus, whatever.
You're right.
I'm just saying.
And get into a public setting to where you can kind of see how they interact with other people. You know, if they hold the door for people, or if they're rude, or I mean, like you said, just watching, you could learn so much about a person.
Yeah.
And don't think what you see is a lie. What you see is the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. Somebody shows you what their true colors are, believe it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't believe what they tell you. Believe what they show you. Listen with your eyes and your ears. And, of course, listen with your brain.
Yep.
But anyway.
And one last thing I would throw out there is I personally do believe that one of your first 3 dates with a person, if you have a relationship with God and you go to church, one of your first 3 dates should be both of y'all going to church together.
Yes, sir.
Because if
I agree with that 200%.
Because, I mean, he may not be the same level of spirituality, but you want to make sure he's not going to feel uncomfortable when you eventually invite him to church.
Yes, sir.
And if he's interested in you enough, he's going to say, let me go ahead and see what's going on. Even if he's never been to church before, he's going to like you enough to say, I'm going to go ahead and do this, because a man knows when he has a good thing.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely.
And he will do whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't lose that good thing on something he did wrong or didn't do.
That's right.
So I feel, hey, you know what? We went on our first date. We had a great time. Let's go ahead and meet me at church Sunday, and then we'll go have our second date. Right after church, we'll go have
we'll have
lunch,
some dinner.
have
right,
brunch.
right.
And if he says no, if he stumbles, or if he's in church and he's shaking, there's a problem.
There's a problem. You're right. There's a problem.
Dude, if he's shaking, there's
on that. Boy.
All right, fellas. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. I want to thank both of you for your wisdom. I think we touched on a lot of good points. I will be posting this the 1st of January, and I look forward to getting some feedback, and definitely keep both of you in the loop. And I want to thank you. You want to share Willis, would you share information as far as your book?
Certainly. My book is called I'm Not a Therapist, I'm Just a Guy. It was written as God began to show me things about me as a man and men in general after my divorce from my first wife and in preparation for my marriage to my second wife. You can get it just about everywhere. Amazon, Lulu, that is LU.com. You can get it on Apple's iBookstore. You can also get it at the Barnes & Noble Nook bookstore. And certainly look forward to your support. Also, watch out because I'm finishing a jazz project. I'm about to release a single cover of Bill Withers' Lovely Day, and that hopefully will be out in time for my birthday in January. So a few things coming up.
And just to plug some of the things you've done, can you name some of the people you work with as far as your musical career?
Oh, wow. I've worked with Patti LaBelle. We did a thing with Earth, Wind & Fire. I produced He's Preparing Me with Daryl Coley and Sovereign with Daryl Coley. There's a myriad of people, Melba Moore. And my last and most recent project was with my pastor, Dr. Claiborne Lee Jr. from Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Fairfield, California, called it "It's About Time," and that's a very successful Stellar Award-nominated project as well.
Amen.
Amen. All right, Keith, tell us about your book.
Well, I don't have the credentials that Will has. I'm still a work in progress.
I'm enjoying your wisdom, sir.
My my literary projects are one that's published in publication already is not available as of yet. I'm still working on that. But the name of the book is Dance: The Anatomy of a Successful Relationship.
Wow.
And if anyone is interested in making a purchase, you can see me on Facebook at Keith Don't Know, or you can reach me at my email address, itskvm@yahoo.com. Or you just wait until I start this marketing program and you'll be able to get the book. Powerful book. And I can't play. I love jazz, but I can't play an instrument.
All right. Well, fellas, once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And I look forward to what the new year has to offer for all of us. And I'm just going to say thank you once again, and y'all have a blessed day.
You too, sir.
You too. Thank you,
right.
Jason.
Thank you all.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.